Let's bring in Rachel Aiello, though, who's standing by, our digital parliamentary correspondent in Ottawa. She's following this for us. Okay, so let's break down the numbers. How bad is bad?
Well, Todd, Canadians are 3 times more likely to think that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should not be the person leading the Liberal Party into the next election. When you break down the numbers, the latest from Nanos, we're looking at about 56% of those surveyed saying that they'd like to see anyone other than Justin Trudeau leading the party into the next election. Just 17% of people surveyed said they think he should stay. What really struck me, Todd, though, is when we drill down into the numbers and you look across the country regionally, Atlantic Canadians had the least amount of support for the Prime Minister staying on, which is notable because he has attempted to kind of soften their appeal through those carbon tax carve-outs. And then you look to British Columbia, and that's where support for the Prime Minister seems to be the strongest. Of note for me, because that's where Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been trying to court voters lately.
So a lot of questions about his future. We're still, arguably a long way away from the next federal election, Rachel, as you know. Let's say, a lot of people are thinking it could be, end of summer, early fall of next year. That's, 15 months away, give or take. A lot can happen between now and then. No doubt the Liberals are hoping a lot's going to happen in terms of switching that momentum away and back toward them. But Trudeau and his future and the ongoing questions swirling in Ottawa and beyond about that. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think what we're really going to be watching over the next little while, Todd, the Liberals keep saying the only poll that matters is the poll on election day. Well, that's going to be put to the test quite soon. There is a federal by-election in a Toronto riding later this month. So I think that is where people are now looking to see how the Liberals fare. It's had for a long time been a Liberal stronghold. If they're able to maintain and their numbers still look strong, that might give the Prime Minister the boost that I think he maybe wanted from the budget and didn't get. But if their numbers start to slip in a riding that's supposed to be rock solid for them, then we're kind of wondering if that's going to be what could start a cascade of the voices that we've kind of been hearing quietly in the background start to amplify and suggest that that push happen. Of course, it seems like there's a long time between now and the next election, but in terms of enough time for the party to actually run a leadership race, it isn't that long, especially when you think about, Todd, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been the face of the Liberal Party and that brand for over a decade now. So that rebuild and kind of reframing, having those voters think about who else it could be, is likely something the party doesn't want to be slapdash.
Yeah, it's a great point, because even if Trudeau were to leave, it doesn't necessarily mean that, some sort of political messiah is going to magically appear and be able to pull the Liberals back from the brink of, oblivion, which is what they could be facing at this point. So who would want to take that job? I know there's a lot of kind of, backroom conversations about that as well. For now, anyway, Trudeau says, no, I want to take on Pierre Poilievre. I want to fight the Conservatives in the next election.
Yeah, and I think all indications is we should take the Prime Minister at his word when he says that. He has indicated that he wants to have this fight. He is now working out this plan of trying to lay out making this case. We've seen him try to wedge Poilievre on certain social issues. Certainly they tried to do measures within the budget to try to wedge the Conservatives. So I do think, just as an individual, he is gearing up for that fight, and he wants to kind of take this to the test. Liberals are certainly concerned about Poilievre and his rhetoric, and they're going to try to drive home their messages about that. But it's going to become a challenge if these voices from some within and some outside of the party continue to kind of undermine or question his leadership. I think there needs to get to a place, Todd, where the party either decides, like, we're all in and let's just do this, get behind this guy, or not, because it's kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Is he going? Is he not? The longer that goes on, the more strength I think it gives Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah, and then just last point, this is where you get some critics who will say, look, this is another example of sort of liberal delusion, where they start to believe their own messaging and they start to say, gosh, there's no way that Canadians will vote for Pierre Poilievre. Look at this guy. I mean, surely if we just keep messaging and holding news conferences, we'll be able to convince enough Canadians to come back into the Liberal fold. That's the plan anyway, I guess.
I think the big wild card here, what the Liberals are waiting to see, is how the U.S. election impacts Canadians. Because we've seen them try to make those comparisons between Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump. And with Donald Trump arguably going to be showing up on our television screens and our newscasts more and more as the race to the U.S. election gets closer into the fall, I think the Liberals are watching to see if that could be something that changes it. But you know, Todd, I've covered the last two federal elections, and there have been moments where we thought this could be it for the Liberals, and then something happens. That's the thing about campaigns. You can be like down and out, and no one thinks you're going to win, and then an event happens, and everything kind of just changes. So certainly a lot of opportunity between now and the next election, however soon or short or long it could be away, for political dynamics in this country to shift. But if they can continue down the path we've kind of been on over the last several months, certainly it's looking like a tough slog for the federal Liberals.
Yeah, absolutely. We know he's a good campaigner, whatever people think about him politically. Thanks for this, Rachel. Good to see you.
Of course, Todd, anytime.
Rachel Aiello in Ottawa.